Okay, the title of the video might be a bit too dramatic, but seriously, watch this before you start creating your own games. Today I want to touch on the psychological aspect of the game development, specifically the issue of the finishing projects. This topic is obviously much more relevant for the indie developers who work on their games in the evenings and in their spare time, rather than for professional game developers who do this as their job. When it's your job, you have a set amount of time for it and you get paid for it. But for a solo game developer who has a day job or goes to school, it's a bit more complicated. They need to plan how much time to dedicate to the game development and how much to family, hobbies, friends, etc. That's clear. Everyone needs to determine their own possibilities and create at least a mental plan. Like, I will dedicate an hour every day to work on my project. Personally, I recommend at least 2 hours, because 1 hour isn't enough to get much done. So, if you want to start making games, you must enjoy it. It must also be your hobby, otherwise it makes no sense. There will be parts you enjoy more and parts you enjoy less, but you have to enjoy the journey of creating, otherwise it's wasted time. Learn the necessary software. This is obvious. If you can't create games, you won't be able to make them. Ideally, start learning on small projects, which leads to the next point. And that is, don't start with the big game or your dream game unless you've completed few small projects. This is important to have some small games under your belt, even short ones, but something you finished. This helps for several reasons. You will learn a lot, understand to complete the process, and better plan a larger game. It also has a better psychological effect as you learn to finish things. Which brings us to the fourth point. Finish your games. Even if you come up with a new and surely great idea for another game, consider if it isn't better to finish what you started. Jumping from one project to another will only lead to burnout. Set a goal. Just enjoying creating games is not enough. You need to have a vision, a mission, a dream, and creating games is the path to it. And I don't mean wanting to buy an expensive car with the money your game makes, but something like creating a successful game, creating your own studio in the future, or making game development your livelihood and job. Be prepared to hate your game by the end. Near the end of the project, especially during testing and bug fixing, you will likely be tired and just want it to be over. However, it's worth it for the final point, and that's releasing your game. It's a great feeling, and whether it means expectation or not, just finishing your project is a small victory for every indie game developer. I don't know about you, but I always have a lot of ideas for games in my head, and I always imagine how easy it will be to create them. When I start, it goes well at first, with lots of energy and excitement, like starting to date someone. The curve is quite similar. Then you start running into problems and complications. It might be a bug you can't fix, or game mechanics not working as you imagined, or hitting some limits, for example. It could also be that you suddenly don't have enough time for your projects, and so on. Gradually the enthusiasm fades and the energy drains until you either give up completely or start on another better game. And this is what I wanted to warn you about. If you decide to create a bigger game, expect and accept this as part of the process, because it won't go smoothly and it will usually take much longer than you initially admit. And that's why I've been making smaller games for the last 2 years, to get acquainted with this process and see where my limits are and if I can finish things. My last game, Space Abyss, was particularly important for me in this regard. I predetermined exactly how much time I'd spend on development and planned all the mechanics in advance, with no intention of adding anything. Of course, many ideas on how to improve the game came up, but that wasn't its purpose. I recommend always thinking through some solid mechanics in advance and avoiding adding things on a whim during development, otherwise you might get stuck in a cycle. If you are working on a larger project, it also helps to set so-called milestones, completing parts of your game along the way, which has a good psychological effect as you see progress. This can help avoid burnout. So in conclusion, my biggest advice is to finish your games, because even if they are bad, you will have a history something to show, something to build on, and something to move forward from. Good luck to everyone, thanks for watching, and take care, bye.